What's going on, you guys? My name is Kyle. I'm a full-time futures trader and founder of the Power Trading Group. This video is a clip from a recent Trading Mentorship Group, which is essentially our weekly coaching sessions where I'm going over how to actually isolate your trading issues and improve as a trader. Now, this video is going to be a bit boring, but if you are serious about getting better at the craft, then this is essential knowledge. If you aren't currently reviewing your trades, this is going to give you a good framework on how to do so. If you do currently review your trades, this is going to show you those areas to focus on to actually improve month over month. If you have any questions, reach out directly or leave them in a comment down below, and I hope you enjoy. Share something that has been top of mind, at least recently. Definitely this morning, something I was thinking about, and let me take the screen down and share another one. I made a little diagram. Been liking to make these lately, just as for the visual. So you'll remember we went over this one a couple of weeks ago in a recent TMG. I don't think it was the last TMG, but the TMG prior to that, within the last two or three mentorship group sessions, we kind of went over this entire diagram here, kind of review and journaling the entire process, the process that I personally followed very early on in my trader development that really helped me kind of get to the next level. And this is still something that I do to this day. Definitely not quite to the extent that I used to, but still something that I do to this day. However, I realize that, looking at this may seem a bit complex. And so what I wanted to do was kind of break it down into more simple components that you can utilize to kind of get better as a trader. Because ideally, you want to have a review process that you can lean on and not need essentially anyone else. Like you want to be someone that is self-sustaining as a trader and not need anyone else. Yes, it is definitely useful to have a community like the Traders Think Tank, or if you have a mentor or a group like this where you can kind of lean on someone for guidance, that is definitely helpful. But my entire goal is to help all of you be self-sustaining and really just do it on your own, like entirely do it on your own. And a big part of that is going to be able to effectively review your trades and find what the issue is, if there even is an issue. And this is a process of identifying patterns, right? Looking for those repeat errors, looking for those repeat mistakes. And that's really what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago when we went over this. It's a big game of data collection and then just repeating the cycle. But when it comes to actual review itself, if we're gonna really just simplify this and get it down to, just the bare bones, two of the main things that I like to look at are the trade idea and then the execution of said trade. And really, trade idea comes first here. And basically, what I'm looking for with the trade idea was whether or not the trade idea was correct. And I have a slightly different definition than a lot of traders do about a trade idea being correct. Now, you may think that if you take a stop on a trade, that the trade idea was incorrect, that the trade idea was wrong. That is not how I look at trade ideas. I look at trade ideas independent of the execution. The idea is quite literally just the idea. And to put this into just super, super simple terms, w- we have an area on the chart. When price gets to that area, do we expect price to go up or down? Just super, super basic, super, super simple. Did price go up or down from this area that we're watching? So, using terms that, many of you are going to be familiar with, something like a level of interest. Let's say, prices, it's moving from the high of day to the low of day into a level of interest. We like to position near levels of interest. Okay, When price got to the level of interest, if we're thinking it's a bounce, did price actually bounce from that level of interest? Yes or no? Should be pretty point blank, right? It has nothing to do with execution. Did price do what we were looking for it to do? Now, there's of course going to be some nuance here, some details that we have to discuss. What degree did price bounce? If we're talking about NQ, did it bounce 20 points? Did it bounce 50 points? Did it bounce 100 points? Right? In those scenarios, we know we're definitely correct with the trade idea. Where it gets a little sticky is those scenarios where it may bounce 10 points and then pretty much roll over. That would be a scenario where I'm saying the trade idea was incorrect. We were wrong. We were wrong. Price did not bounce. Well, what about a scenario where price kind of bounces 10 points, goes below the level by maybe 5 points, and then puts in the rally? Maybe it puts in a little trap, it puts in a little spring. Are we still considering that trade idea correct? For me, yes. For me, yes. So again, to repeat, it would be, price gets into the level of interest. Maybe it bounces 5 or 10 points. We've all seen those scenarios. And then it rolls over a little bit more, kind of undercuts that low, and then puts in, the 50-point move or the 30-point move higher, whatever it is that you're looking for. That is a trade idea that was correct. And so when you're looking at your trade review, you want to kind of segment, do I have a trade idea issue or do I have an execution issue? So on the trades where the trade idea was incorrect, meaning price did not even show you a small amount of profitability on the trade idea. Essentially, you take your entry, and let's say it bounces like 5 points and just completely rolls over, continues lower. That would be the case in a lot of scenarios if you're trying longs on a day like today, where it's a trend lower day, right? These scenarios, the trade idea was incorrect. We don't even need to worry about execution. I don't even care about execution in a situation like that. I'm not wasting any mental bandwidth on it. I'm pretty much entirely focused on, did I miss something in my analysis that made the trade idea incorrect? And we're not going to ever be 100% with our trade ideas, but I do think that this is a worthwhile exercise to kind of improve our analysis overall and kind of become, have a more in-depth understanding and a more nuanced understanding of what price is doing. So a lot of the times what traders will do is when they take a stop, they just assume, that there's nothing that can be gained from that particular trade. And I never, when I was early in my development, I never worked with that assumption. I know that that thought process is very common these days. I always assumed that there was something that I overlooked or that I was missing on the chart. Like I didn't have all of the information that I needed. And so I would personally spend as much time as I needed to kind of figure out, what did I overlook here? Did I miss some sort of higher time frame structural development, some sort of higher time frame level? Was I involved at the wrong time of day? Was I against kind of the intraday trend? That would be a big one today, right? If you're trying longs all day today, you're probably going to be having a very tough time. Was the trade location improper? Meaning, was I involved in no man's land, kind of between levels of interest or between reference points, just in a random location? And I would really look at that and try and isolate, okay, what about this trade idea was a miss? And it really does not have to be an exhaustive list necessarily. But if the idea was wrong and there is some issue within the analysis that we can pinpoint, that's a helpful piece of data. That's a helpful piece of information. Because again, this is a pattern recognition game. So let's say a day like today, you're trying longs all day long and they just are getting steamrolled, steamrolled, steamrolled. You start to notice, oh, it's a trend lower. The intraday trend is lower. Like this is a bearish day and I'm trying long. So yeah, I overlooked the intraday trend. That was definitely an issue with the trade idea itself. Now, there's going to come a point where you got everything correct as far as the trade idea, and it still fails. Those scenarios are normal variance, but typically when you're in those early years of development, you're not getting every component correct, which is, oh, that's okay. It's part of, getting better as part of the development, but then it's your job to kind of isolate and kind of find, okay, what did I overlook? What did I miss here? What did I miss? And if you can find one thing, that's good. That's good because we can kind of start to document, where am I having a repeat issue in my trade idea, in my analysis. So that's trade idea. Now let's assume that you end up getting the trade idea correct, right? There was not an issue with the trade idea. Price got to that level of interest. It actually bounced, but maybe it did that scenario that we mentioned earlier where price kind of it put in that little 10-point bounce and then undercut the low and then put in the 50-point move higher, right? Think of like the trap or the sort of spring setup. That is not a trade idea issue because price actually bounced where you were expecting it to. It's an execution issue. So if you get shaken out on that trade idea, it is independent of the quality of the trade idea itself. It is a problem with the execution. And so we're not even concerned with the trade idea. We're not analyzing the trade idea. We're not spending any time on the trade idea. We want to focus our efforts on the execution. So, what could we have done to kind of improve our execution? Was it a matter of waiting a few minutes and securing a better entry, right? Were we too aggressive with the entry? Were we trying to be the first one in and we bought the little first 15-second green candle and we just wanted to get in there and then we got shaken out? Now we're thinking the trade idea is off. Was it a situation where you had the stop too tight? Right? Was the stop appropriately placed? Did you have it below the signal? Did you give it a little bit of buffer beneath the signal? Was it a situation where the trade management was not so great? This one is a little bit tricky because if you were in the live stream today, I was in two trades that technically I would consider the idea failed. The price did not hit my first target. And so those ideas failed, but it was still two profitable events for me in the market. It was still two engagements that I had with price where I walked away with more money, essentially, right? And that is thanks to how I manage my trades. Very tight management. Now that can be a big way to sharpen your edge alone, but that is definitely a discussion for another time. So, were you in a scenario where you could have managed the trade a little bit differently and then it would have been, a profitable outcome? And then finally, this doesn't totally tie in with execution, but I wanted to put it in here because it's worth mentioning. Sizing. If you're in sizing that is too large, you're going to be too antsy in the trade, right? We've all been there. We're a little anxious because we know we have too much size on. And so that's going to cause you to kind of mismanage it, to potentially take a stop that's too tight. And so that can definitely have a big impact on our execution. So that's kind of an overview of how I look at trade review. I really split it into two categories: trade idea itself and then execution. And first and foremost, we want to look at, okay, was the actual trade idea correct or not? Did price actually do what we expected? Yes or no? That should be pretty straightforward. And then, depending on the answer to that, you get into execution. So, hopefully, that is helpful, you guys. Hopefully that kind of makes it a little bit more simple. I know we kind of covered a lot of concepts here. If you have more questions on this, feel free to just post them in the chat, or you could DM me directly. But that's kind of a more basic approach to trade review. And then from there, it gets a little bit more advanced, like we had discussed in that recent TMG. If you missed that, I'm not going to rehash this whole thing. If you missed that discussion, that overview of this schematic right here, just go back and you can watch that.